But yeah, I'll just give you a little very quick history. So I was a high school basketball coach for 35 years. I was a head coach 30 of those years. Um, I didn't start out very well. Some of you may appreciate maybe your first job, but I had a dream to be a head coach. And, I grew up in Rochester, New York. I actually grew up in the largest suburb of Rochester called Greece. And I went to one of the high schools and I ended up being the head coach at the other two. So I kind of hit my hometown pretty hard. But my first coaching position as a head coach was at 25 at a school about 20 minutes away. And they weren't very good, but I thought I was a great coach and I was going to lead them from the outhouse to the penthouse. And of course, we won our second game, so we're 1-1. And then I led that team to 17 consecutive losses. And then I was in an interim position and they decided not to bring me back. So it was a pretty humbling experience at 25 to be my dream come true to be a head coach. And within a year, I was out of that profession. Fortunately, I got a call from a local junior college coach. He was pretty successful. His name was Bill Van Gundy. And for any of you that follow basketball, his two sons, Jeff and Stan, ended up being head coaches in the NBA a number of times. So I got a good year of tutelage under him. And then I became a head coach again at a smaller school. I did much better. And then my last 27 years, I coached at two high schools in my hometown. And I kind of got known as a turnaround specialist because I turned around programs that were pretty good with great staff and getting players to believe in themselves. But I got known as the coach that couldn't win the big one. We kept winning. I think we had 10 or 12 consecutive winning seasons, but we never did well in the postseason. We kept losing our sectional tournament. And then my life changed dramatically when this young man, Kathy mentioned J-Mac, I just said he was 37 years old. He came into our program, tried out, ended up trying out for our team 3 consecutive years, never made it. He was very small in stature, although if you saw him today, you wouldn't believe me because he was 5'9", 115 pounds his senior year. He's now 6'2" and 175 pounds. So he does not look like the same kid. But he served as my team manager for 2 years, and I got very close to him. And I wanted to give him a gift his senior year. And his senior year, I told him that I was going to give him a uniform for our final home game where we honored the seniors before the game. And I kid people that periodically he would ask me about that uniform. And of course, I define periodically as about every other day. He really wanted to get that uniform. So I'll just give you just a quick highlight because I'm here for you. It's not about me. So, but I would tell you that I did put him in the game with just over 4 minutes to go. He didn't follow the script on the first shot. He shot an air ball and a 3-pointer. In fact, he missed it by about 6 feet. And I kid people that I know you're not supposed to pray in the public schools, but dear God, I was praying hard. I'm a person of faith. He missed his second shot as well, but he made a 3-pointer in his third shot, and the place just exploded, and I couldn't believe it. But the crazy thing is it didn't stop there. And I got to fast forward to tell you just quick. Jason's idol, his nickname, as you know, is J-Mac, but his idol was the late Kobe Bryant. He used to sign his name Jason J-Mac Kobe McElwain. I kid you not. And 6 months after that game, and I'll come back and just finish the story about the game after this, is he was at the ESPY Awards. Jason was up for the greatest sports moment of the year, and one of the other finalists was Kobe Bryant. Kobe had scored 81 points for the Lakers in a game that year. So Jason got to meet his idol and beat him out for the ESPY. So, well, how did he do that? Well, he didn't just make 1 3. He made a number of threes. In fact, the 2 things I'll close with is what a minute ago he had made 3 or 4 threes. The place was going bananas. I'm sitting on the bench, tears flowing down my face. I cannot believe what I'm watching. And I get a tap on my shoulder, and I look behind me, and it's Jason's mother. And she's bawling her eyes out, and she whispers in my ear, "Coach, this is the best gift you could ever give my son." Of course, I don't know what you have done, but I did cry harder. It touched me deeply. And then how the game ends is our opponent that night, Spencerport, they were really good sports. I want to give kudos to their coach and their players. But they scored about 10 seconds to go, and our player takes it out of bounds and normally throws it to our point guard. But for some unknown reason, he threw it to J-Mac. And J-Mac's kind of dribbling down, and I thought they would just let him go in and make a short shot, a layup. only he is like he was playing the last moment. Jason kind of slows down. He pulls up like 2 feet behind the 3-point arc, almost an NBA three. And I was like thinking to myself, Jason, don't shoot from there. You're going to ruin the moment. He launches a rainbow and it goes swish. And it was just like a scene out of a movie, Rudy. The whole gym ran on the floor. Our players put him up on their shoulders. And at that point, I had no idea how many points he had scored. And our public address announcer comes on and says, the leading scorer for Greece Athena tonight, J-Mac, with 20 points, including 6 3-pointers. And it ended up, I'll close with 2 things. I ended up where I was not a marketer. I had no media there. I really felt in my heart I did it for the right reasons. I did have to call it in our local newspaper. We had to do that back then. They didn't make much of a deal. And how it exploded in the world, you talk about different things. Jason's speech pathologist, he had never come to a game, but he worked with Jason for 4 years. He came to the game. He called our local TV stations, and they borrowed the video. Back then it was VHS cassette tape, and they showed it that night. And within 5 days, it exploded all over the world. We got an opportunity to meet President Bush. We were on Oprah. It was a pretty crazy thing. And I'll end with 2 things is that I told you I was a coach that couldn't win the big one. Well, Jason had to go back as our team manager, and we won our first championship that year. So, and it was just crazy. And then Jason came back and volunteered my program my last 9 years, and we won 5 more championships together. So for a small fee, I will rent him out to you. He was pretty touching. So now I speak full time. I retired in 2016. I wrote a book about it called A Coach and a Miracle, and I just as part of another book called Lessons from Thought Leaders recently. I do a podcast called The Limitless Leadership Lounge. We do it with 3 people. We've interviewed leaders from all over the world to help young and emerging leaders. I told you the context is my first job at 25, I got fired. So I want to give back to young leaders. And today I do a lot of leadership and team culture presentations as well as inspirational presentations. And I'm done talking. So I'm here for you, and I'm open to any questions you have. So.
I'm just putting some of the links in the chat for your podcast and your books and things.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you guys, I know Kathy was probably, there's a lot of videos on this story, but the ESPN J-Mac one is the one that I show a lot at the opening of my presentation. It's about 5 minutes long. It's really powerful.
So Coach, I'm Donna. How are you?
Hi, Donna. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So thinking back to the beginning of the story, you have this person who really wants to play and is not the ideal player.
Right.
So he becomes the manager, but then he actually turns out to be this great player. I'm really curious in terms of what were your learnings about maybe some of the ideas that you had in your head about what makes a great player, because then this whole thing happens in such an unexpected way.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll say this. So my first speech that I started doing was called Dreams Really Do Come True. And, I wrote a book called A Coach and a Miracle, because I don't think we're ever going to see that again. An autistic young man that had never played in a game that scored 20 points in less than 4 minutes. But to answer your question specifically, what I learned so much about Jason, and it was funny because we ended up winning our first championship at the end of that season, was his remarkable grit and perseverance. I had never had a player ever try out 3 times in a row without making a team. But the other thing that I wanted to share with people is that he, after his sophomore year, I didn't know him until he tried out, but he was such a great team guy, and he cared so deeply about the team. But he came to all our off-season workouts between his sophomore and junior year. And, he was getting better. But, the thing that what I really admired him is he was always would come to practice early, and he would be rebounding for kids, and they would rebound for him. And, his father would tell me that they're driving him, or he's driving them crazy because he's shooting in the driveway at 10 o'clock at night. And so it just gave me a real lesson about That, your biggest dreams aren't always going to come true, but boy, a lot bigger things will happen in your life if you develop that resilience muscle that Jason has.
I love that.
Hi, Coach. Just curious, what was the response from the team? Like, were they super supportive? Were they happy for him? Like, how did the team handle all of this, especially when it went to be such a big national story?
Yeah, Betsy, it was a really interesting thing because, and again, I'm not here to market my book, but I will say, because it's a long story, the really interesting thing why I think it's pertinent to this question is the first half of that year was the worst season I'd ever had in my life. We were really talented, and we had a lot of division because of one of our assistant coaches, and the parents didn't get along. And it divided the team. And it was somewhat racial. To give you context, I grew up in the community, and it was pretty pearly white. Now our community is extremely diverse. It's changed immensely. And so that became an issue that year. And what was so cool was to see, we had a heart-to-heart meeting at a Christmas tournament, and I became very vulnerable because I did not know what to do. They literally, the first team that, as talented as we just weren't together. We were playing awful, and we were playing in this championship game of this tournament, and the other team was outstanding, and I thought if we could come together, we could have a chance. But the way we were divided, we were going to lose by 50 points. And we had a shoot around because during Christmas break. And one of the best leadership lessons I learned from that was I tried to give him a little motivational speech, but I knew that wasn't going to be the change, is I became very vulnerable. And I said to him, guys, I don't have the answers on how we can unite this team. You do, though. You got me willing. And we waited. And by the end of that, we never brought a basketball out in that hour, but everyone got a chance to share, and they felt like they were being heard. It did manifest that night. We actually played a great game. We lost to that team in overtime, but it showed what we could do, and it really gained some momentum. But to really specifically zero in, the thing that touched my heart so deeply, Betsy, was the four players that were on the floor with Jason were all second-team players too, guys that didn't play a lot. And I never asked them to pass the ball. I was hoping he could score a basket. That was my dream for him. But out of their own hearts, that's how much they cared about him. They passed the ball to him every possession, and he shot every time. Although I still kid Jason because I see him still all the time, and we talk all the time. And I say, J-Mac, I'm still looking for your first assist. You didn't pass the ball once. But that was really thing, and it just really united. And then the fact that Betsy, he became a global celebrity. He couldn't walk anywhere where people didn't know who he was. And yet he had to go back as our team manager. Yet after that season, people would, because we got interviewed a ton by the media, and they would ask him, what was the best thing about your senior season? And they're expecting him to talk about his game. And he says, winning the Section 5 championship, there's nothing better than that. So that really showed what kind of, teammate he was. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Coach. Kate McKinnon here.
Hi, Kate.
The less well-known one. First of all, such an inspiring story. Absolutely love it. And I'm curious how your relationship with J-Mac has evolved over the years.
Yeah, so it evolved a lot because, he became so after he graduated from high school, he went to, Kathy will be familiar with this because it's a big grocery store, and it started in Rochester, but it's, in, I think, about 10 states called Wegmans. And he went to work at Wegmans in the bakery. And, he was doing well. And about 2 years after he'd been out, he came back one day and he sat in the office and he said, Coach, I really miss the program. Is there any way I can come back and help? And I said, sure. So he was my volunteer, and he was amazing because he would do so many. He would go to not only all the varsity practices, he would go to other teams' practices. He would open or go to the Y and meet kids. So he was just a ball of energy. Now, I do want to remind everybody, he is autistic. So there are challenges. The one thing that was really interesting is because he was such a good team player, he could not handle when someone was selfish. And so we had to tone him down on that because, as I talked to him a lot about, Jason, part of coaching is you got to build relationships, and not everybody thinks like you do. So it was a lot of, learning from, he was learning from me, I was learning from him. But he just loved it, and he couldn't get enough. That was the hardest thing for me leaving, is that because I knew that I wasn't going to see him, because I used to because when I started speaking, I would travel 3 or 4 years after that game, and people would say, "Do you ever see Jason?" I say, "Yeah, I see Jason every single day. And the days I don't, he texts me 10 times." So, but so I learned a lot about Jason, about. In how he related with people. I'll tell you one little quick funny story, how much he evolved in the positive. After that season, when he had all those, points, we got invited to all kinds of things. And I remember we were in a city, we were guest honors, I can't remember the city, and we met the mayor of the city. And the mayor started asking him about other things, as Jason loves sports. So if you don't talk sports or fitness, he doesn't want to talk to you. So he literally walks away from the mayor, and I go over, "Jason, that's the mayor of the city. We got to talk to you for a few minutes." So, it's not to say that everything was a smooth plateau, but I certainly have learned a lot from Jason, and how he's responded to different things. But he's grown a lot. I'm really proud. He just got his driver's license a couple of years ago. So I will admit, I am a person of faith, and I still, when we go together, I drive. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Coach, it's Arlen here. I had a
Hi, Arlen.
question. Hey, so when you first got fired there in the story, what are some things that you kind of went through to discover what you learned from that first experience, or talk about that transition from that point to coaching again down the road?
Yeah, so that was certainly the hardest part for that situation was that they waited a long time, and so I had to re-interview for the job because I was in an interim position. And the thing that frustrated the most is they let me know 8 days before school started. So I literally had no shot of getting another job. But fortunately, Coach Van Gundy, and then I am getting a couple part-time jobs and just trying to keep things going. And at first, I was extremely bitter, which I think a lot of us would say if you feel like you're because the principal had told me at the end of the year that he loved me and things were going to go well. And then 2 weeks later, he must have heard something behind the scenes, and they told me I had a great interview. So I knew I was in trouble when it changed within 2 weeks. So initially, I wanted to blame everybody else. But then I started to really go on my own journey of personal growth. And I started to read a lot. And, I've read well over 1,000 books on, leadership and teamwork and all that, because it's just so fascinating to me. But the book that really made major impact was Dr. Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talked about a personal mission statement, Arlen. And to be frank, I had no idea what he was talking about. And, I do a lot of leadership talks around the country, and I'll ask people, how many people have a personal mission statement? And it's a very small percentage. And the reason I really talk to people, and in my keynotes and workshops, I give them some steps of how I discovered my mission. But when I got clarity of who I was and what I was going to stand for, it helped me become a much better leader. And, I far from perfect, but at least I have clarity of what I want to become and who I want to be. And my personal mission statement is to be an outstanding role model that makes a positive difference in the world by helping others make their dreams come true. And I know if I can help people make their dreams come true, then I'm living my mission. And one of the things I talk to people about mission is I think you discover it. I think part of it is getting clarity of asking you this question: why were you put on this earth? Or you're a person of faith like I am, why did God put you on this earth? And I think then getting clarity of what your core values, your personal core values are. And then how can this mission be bigger than you? So, in my case, I want to help people, but it could be you want to help animals, or you want to make the world a better place in another way. But I think if it's bigger than you, just like I think a business or a school mission has got to be bigger than just, like a business, you have to make profit. In coaching basketball, we had to win games. But it's got to be bigger than that. In fact, just to give you an example, Arlen, our team mission was to develop winners on and off the court. And I tell leaders that you got to be the CRO, the chief reminding officer, that you got to continually to live the mission, teach the mission, and be the mission every single day, and understanding what the behaviors are of your core values and how you're going to live that. So I rambled there a little bit, Arlen, but it was a very traumatic first few months for me. But then I got on with life. And when I really got into my own personal growth, it helped me immensely.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
That's amazing.
Hey, it's Rich Keller. Nice to meet you, Jim.
Hi, nice to meet you, Rich.
I got to be honest with you. I joined. I'm like, what the hell is this going to be about today? I'm just blown away by, in the first 5 minutes, everything about your story. I can't wait to watch the YouTube video. Can't wait to read the book. But there's two things that I guess you reminded me of today. Number one is we're just one relationship away from our entire life changing. I mean, entrepreneurship is hard.
Yeah.
We want to impact people. I mean, at least I do. I want to make a difference.
Yep.
I'm one person out of a billion. You're one relationship away. You reminded me of that today to keep going. And the second thing is, it just takes one person to believe in you.
Yeah.
And the reason that I say that is because it just hit me today. I quit my career at 50, very successful career to do what I'm doing right now. And the one person that believed in me from day one, never wavered, is my wife.
Wow,
and
that's great.
When we went from, a lot of money to zero, and I just want to say thank you to you, because sometimes you said CRO, Chief Reminder Officer. I love that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we got to be reminded that it takes one person and we're one relationship away. So just thank you. I can't wait for this to end so I can go watch that YouTube video. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rich. I appreciate your kind words, and certainly keep me posted if I can support you with your journey.
Thank you for taking the time. That really means a lot.
My pleasure.
Coach.
Oh, there's Joe Jacoby. I've talked to Joe. So are we in Spain right now?
We are.
Okay.
And it actually kind of leads into my question for today. So by the way, I've had the amazing good fortune to have a nice conversation with Jim a few weeks ago. We've been exchanging emails, and I love what he's doing. And I just love his own trajectory of growth. Jim is helpful to all of us, but he's on this awesome journey himself. So Jim, about 15 minutes before this conversation today, I was down in the Olympic canoeing park here in the town where I live. I showed you that when we talked before. And I ran into a photographer and an editor, a writer that were from the Netherlands that are writing a story about Catalonia. And they were saying, what's going on here? And I was telling them about the Olympic legacy and all the kids that are training here now. And I said, having lived here for the last 8 years, what is so amazing to me, it's the only whitewater canoeing club in the entire world where 200 kids do not depend on their parents to drive them to practice. Every one of our kids walks less than 15 minutes to canoeing after school. So it's just interesting to observe what happens when the parents are not involved, because I've been out of the United States for a long time now. So here's my question to you.
Yeah.
I know you must get asked a lot about parental involvement in sport and youth sport today in the United States. What is the best thing about parental involvement in the US right now? And what is the worst, the hardest thing, the most challenging thing about parental involvement in youth sport in the United States right now?
Well, that's a really good question, Joe. And I'll look at both your angles. So the first one is, I think parents want to tend to be a little bit more involved in their child's life. Like I remember, I mean, I love my parents. My dad passed last year, but my mom's still alive, and then they were great parents. But we did a lot where we would go down or go to the school and play, right? And I played all kinds of sports, and now they want to get their kids involved, and I think they really in their hearts want the best interest of their kids, and they get them involved in organized programs. But the caveat of that is, I know we've heard the term the helicopter parent, where they're so overly involved in that they get their son or daughter in some sport for, I think, the wrong reason. And the wrong reason is because you think they're going to be, in your case, an Olympic medalist or a professional athlete or even a Division I athlete, which is so rare. Like I was a head coach 30 years. I think I had 6 kids get scholarships. I mean, it's hard to get. I've had 1 kid play in the NBA. So, I mean, and I know a lot of coaches that have coached as long as me, if not longer, and never had a kid play in the NBA. And it's such a remote thing that happens. So one of the things that I've really been talking to parents, I got better and better of getting parents involved in the sense that, I showed they cared, I respected them all. But I really tried to teach their kids that, let's do this sport because of the love of it, having fun with it, and also what you can learn by being in a sport, the discipline, in a lot of sports, there's teamwork, even individual sports, they have a team, so it's really important that we teach, all the things we can learn from sports, from resilience or perseverance, to adding disciplines, I always told our kids, the 2 C's of our program was challenging and caring. We're going to challenge you. It's not easy to play in our program. We have very high standards, but they knew they cared about us. But in fact, the kid that played in the NBA a couple of years, one of the greatest compliments he ever gave my assistant coach, he said, the one thing I can tell you about Coach Johnson, I know he cares more about me as a person than he does as a player. And so that really touched me deeply, because to me, that's what it was all about, is trying to impact these young people through the game of basketball, which I love. But I was so fascinated with the leadership component. And I believe you do need parents that they respect you, that they know you care about their kids. But I think it's also, as a leader like I was, is give them perspective, is how many valuable lessons they can learn by just being part of some kind of sport. And there's a lot of other activities that are great too. Sports is not just one. But so to answer you specifically, I think parents are more involved, but sometimes that's not such a good thing. So.
And Jim, I promise, last follow-up.
Yeah.
It's not exactly related, but I am curious. I used to be a big sports fan and followed the NBA so closely. Mm-hmm. Now it's mostly, if I do follow, it's kind of following the players from Europe and the international contributions to the game in the United States. I'm just wondering, in your coaching career, if you ever had in the high school, if you ever had kids from Europe or from other places outside that learned the game outside the United States, and if you could talk about, if you did, any experiences or observations you had about athletes who learned the fundamentals of the game outside of the United States.
So I did have a couple that came in, as kind of transfers for a year type thing, but I never had a kid that was really that good. But I will say, from my observations, Joe, and it's debatably right now that the top players in the NBA, because LeBron James is probably not the top anymore, are from Europe. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason I believe that, and this is one of the, I think was a key to our program, that we spent a lot of time with our players in skill development. And one of the things I think why our teams really started to be very successful, because our kids became highly skilled. And if you look at the European model right now, that's the difference. It doesn't matter whether they're 7 foot tall or 6 foot tall. They can all
Yes.
pass, they can all shoot, they can all dribble. And that's why, you know, guys like Jokic and, you know, Gianni are, you know, the best players in the world right now, because they're not just one dimensional. We have too many. And this is what has gotten in a little bit just of the American model is too much where kids just play 5-on-5. And what the best players are doing, yes, you need to play 5-on-5 because you have to understand how the game is played, because it is played 5-on-5. But the skill is the divider. And the ability to be highly skilled is something that we're losing a little bit in the United States. And that's why you're seeing the Europeans surplus because they're doing a better job of training their younger people on skill development.
Yeah, thank you for that. By the way, Kobe Bryant did, you know, he used to talk about learning the fundamentals of the game when his dad was playing professional in Italy.
Right.
He used to talk a lot about those same differences, learning the fundamentals in Europe versus learning the fundamentals in the US. And it was really, really different, that focus. And yeah, anyway, thank you for that. This has been great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your opinion on both topics. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Hey, Coach Johnson, this is Jennifer Panzishin. How are you?
Hi, Jennifer. Nice to see you.
You too. I'm excited to listen to your YouTube. I have a kiddo that plays sports, high school sports. So
Yeah.
She's a senior this year, and I have a kiddo that's also 37 years old. So
Oh, wow.
I'm parented in both generations. And my oldest one actually was 23rd in the nation in motocross, believe it or not.
Wow.
So I've dealt in that athletic world. It is such a, I don't know how to say it. It's such a disaster right now in our sports world. I mean, I live in Northwest Ohio, and I'm sure it's mostly the same in most areas, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going into sectionals and things like that right now for volleyball, and we are up against at least every single team has 1 to 2, some of them 3 D1 commits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is. But as I put in the chat, you've got a lot of talented kids. They're being missed because their parents can't afford to have them traveling all over the U.S. to play in club ball when they're 10 years old.
Yeah.
So if you could give any advice to a coach now that's coaching, what would that be? And knowing that we're missing a lot of really good kids.
Well, for me, one of the things that we did a lot is spending time with our youth program and working on skill development. So I think, you know, obviously we were looking for young kids that loved basketball, so they were passionate about the game. And certainly we wanted to, you know, would you rather have a guy 6'10" or a guy 5'4" in basketball? Well, in most cases, probably the 6'10" guy. Yeah. So, but at the other side of that is that what you can measure, and that's why I think as a leader of any kind, you know, I kid leaders that the 3 R's in leadership is relationships, relationships, relationships. And so the ability to build bonds with young people so they trust you. And, you know, and one of the things I talk about is how to build trust with people, is that the essence is giving kids opportunity by you as the head coach, you know, getting involved with the community and their community programs and giving kids opportunities to, you know, where they're either very low cost or, you know, or even free. Like I did a lot of open gym basketball for our middle school and high school students. You know, we did a lot of skill development. We let them play some, but we spent a lot of time with their skills because we really preach to them the skills are the divider. And so that would be the biggest thing, because there's something, I mean, obviously I don't control it. Some parents have quite a bit of money and some parents don't. And so there are some kids that, you know, were playing in what they call in basketball, the high level AAU. And there is certainly some benefits because those travel teams play against, usually really good players from all around the country. And that's how, in fairness, with college coaches, they, rather than, like I said, I had one kid that played in the NBA. Well, did have colleges coaches come to our games, but they'd rather see Anthony, in this young man's case, play down in a AAU tournament in Las Vegas against the best players in the country. And how could he do? So I understand where they're coming from. But at the other side is that if you can really encourage young people to play the game, get skilled in the game, because if you get really skilled, eventually it works out for you. And, we all have exceptions to that. But the thing that stunned me, I know I'm getting off in a different sport, but I was amazed on how many players in the NFL were not drafted. It's incredible to me with all the science and all the things. So it does go to show to me, because one thing is that even the NFL's coaches and scouts can't measure is a person's heart. And that's why I think there's a lot of people that are playing in the NFL that a lot of people didn't think they could play, or were very not a real high draft pick. I mean, the guy that's starting quarterback for the San Francisco Giants or 49ers was the last pick in the draft. So you just don't know. And I think there's so many. And I think the other thing that leaders need to do and parents need to do is you got to be the chief storyteller. You got to inspire. Like I told our players a lot of stories about, I always call them warnings and examples. I love sharing stories of, this is something we should do to emulate so you can be the best. And then I would share stories like I'm not going to pick on anybody personally, but I might bring out an NBA player and say, boy, that guy is really talented. How come his team never wins? And you know why? Because he's selfish. He doesn't pass the ball. And then I point out to another guy that's really good. I say, how come his team always wins? Because there's a difference in mindset. He's a team guy. And so those are some of the things that, from a perspective as a parent and as a leader in trying to teach young people about skill development and what it takes to be successful and being part of a team. So I don't know if I answered your question, Jennifer, but I shared a few things anyways. So.
Coach, I'll ask another question if nobody else is going. So one of the things that I love to do is work with former athletes in their transition to the workplace.
Okay.
I was wondering, in that context, what are the biggest challenges that you see that former athletes come up against when they're transitioning out of sport?
So I think the biggest thing is their identity, because, the other thing is that if they played at a high level, at big time Division I, or played some professional, is that their identity. Now, to get to that level, they had to work hard. So they developed some things that should carry over into life. All right, discipline of showing up in that. You'll get a few rare exceptions where somebody's so extremely talented that they do play professionally and then they really fail in life because they're clueless. Okay, those guys usually don't last long, but there are exceptions where guys are just so talented that they're going to take some chances on them, and a lot of times those guys don't work out. But I think the biggest thing is teaching those young men and young ladies after they've played at a really high level, what were all the great things that you learned that now you can, like I'm going to speak to a business in Texas. I run my own little business, but there's a lot of transferable skills, whether you're a leader leading a basketball team or you're a leader leading a business of 500 employees. Those transferable leadership skills, and that's what I try to teach. Like, I'll ask leaders, is trust important in building a great team culture? Because I'm doing a team culture talk on Monday, and they all say yes. And then I stun them. I said, well, if trust is so important, do you have an intentional trust plan, how you're going to build trust with your team? And then I talk about our trust plan, and this is what we did. So I think those are the things that you're looking for is when you're making a transition where you've been elite of elite. If you play professional, you're in less than 1%. But now the people that make it is because they understand that a lot of these skills they learned in athletics are very transferable if they use them. But one of the great things I think that's really important, that's a challenge for people that make it at a really high level, is I think the best leaders are very humble. And sometimes that is really a strike to their ego when they try to transfer from, being an elite athlete to now all of a sudden now you're going to be in some type of business, whether it's a leadership position. The other thing, like the same concept that, because I've talked at sales meetings sometimes, and, where sales people that are great in sales, now what's the next thing for them? Be the sales manager, which often becomes the sales mangler, because they're clueless on leadership. Okay, they know how to sell, which is part of leadership. You do not have to sell your vision and all of those kinds of things, but they don't get the fact that you really have to have a transferable skills, and there's a different skill set between being a good salesperson and being a good leader. So,
and it doesn't matter what career field that you come from. You always have to plan for that career or life transition. And if you don't have a plan, it becomes a problem. And I wrote a book about this partly because when I transitioned from the military to the private sector, well, we run into so many issues, especially with the services that are supposed to service that typically don't. Or if you have a health condition and can't work, getting judged because you're not working. So it could be an athlete with an injury. It could be a veteran with an injury. And all of a sudden you're not working and people judge you. They don't say, "Who are you, Georgia?" And Jim, they say, "What do you do?"
Right.
And it becomes a really weird issue.
Yeah. That's a great point. Thanks for sharing, Georgia.
We have to plan for the transition, and if we don't know what the skills are, we now have ChatGPT. You can actually plug a resume in there,
Right.
and they have websites with AI, so you can take a job description, you can put your resume in on the other side. It'll tell you how close of a match that you are, and give you tips on what you need to do so you get picked up by the I call it the AI robot, but you get picked up by the resume system.
Yeah.
It's all about the plan. And if you don't have a plan, crisis.
Yeah. And the old adage I used to give my players, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, Coach, I got one for you. I'm probably going to sound like the old man in the room yelling at the clouds, but I feel like this could be helpful for some people on the call. So I was pretty fortunate. I played ice hockey my whole life. And when I started at 5 years old, the coach I had was difficult. It was actually Johnny Gaudreau's dad. Johnny Gaudreau played in the NHL for a number of years. But at 5, 6 years old, we were already pushing tires. We were already, if we were not bending our knees enough, we were getting smacked over the head with the stick to make sure we stayed down. And we had to do a lot of hard things at a young age. And I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of guys on that team ended up D1, AHL, NHL, pro overseas. I'm seeing the exact opposite with my 12-year-old nephew, where this is his first year playing hockey, where they're actually doing some of the harder things conditioning-wise. Right. And it's the first time that he's kind of saying, hey, I don't know if I like hockey. I don't know if I like doing this. Right. So maybe I'm the old man yelling at the clouds, but from what I've seen, it seems like a lot of kids aren't forced to do the hard things at as early of an age as my generation was. So do you have any tips for trying to help nurture those kids who are preteens, young teens, never had to do anything hard, and now they're having to push themselves and they don't know how to react?
Right. Well, I do think a couple things. As a leader, number one, we really encouraged and expected us to do hard things. But I will say, I would take our players into a workout after practice in the weight room, and sometimes I would do it with them. Okay. Now I was quite a bit older than them, but I kept myself fit. So, I think modeling is important as a leader and as a parent, so that, because I think one of the things that I've seen evolve in parenting is that they want to make life better for their kids, which, when you think about it, yes, I'd like to see my son better than, but at the same time, if you don't expect them and put them into situations where they're doing hard things, then
It sounds like it's working.
and also trying to always bail them out when things don't go well for them, I think is a huge mistake. That people have to learn to fail. I mean, we could go on for story after story of the most successful people ever been on this earth, of all the failures they had, and now that the people that are known as highly successful people. So I think that's something that we have gotten away from, that we want to try to make things as easy, and technology has unfortunately done that in some ways too. Where this phone has become like the crazy, that we always got to be looking at it and all that kind of thing. And so I, it does go back to me with basics, and the basics are, if you're going to be successful, you got to have a work ethic. You got to be willing to work hard. You got to overcome challenges. And so I think those are things we got to be consistently teaching, by the way we live our life, by sharing stories of people that have been successful. I think we just got to keep reinforcing that. And I don't know that I have a magic formula. I do see that because I think all parents are trying to do what's best for their kids, but unfortunately, if you're just trying to make their life easy, I'm not sure that's the best thing for them. So.
I love the modeling part of that answer. That's a good point. Maybe I'll have to do some workouts with the young nephew and show him that it's okay to, not get that last rep, shake a little bit, not get there, and it's okay, but you don't quit.
Right. I follow this guy, Ed Milet. I don't know if any of you guys do. He has a podcast, but he wrote a book called The Power of One More. And I think that's a really, it's kind of something we embraced. One of my favorite quotes is, there are no traffic jams on the extra mile. And I used to tell our players all that, that there's not many people on the extra mile because they're not willing to do it. I mean, going back to our CC of the challenging piece, we practiced at 6 o'clock in the morning. And our kids didn't like that at first. That's not easy. But you know what? As we started to gain more success, they realized that that's part of the price you pay if you want to be great. So,
thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Hi, Coach. I am curious about something, but I'll prelude it first with.
Sure.
I grew up in Indiana, and with a father that loved basketball. So, always knew basketball. I went to IU, always basketball in my brain. My partner went to full scholarship to Purdue on basketball, and he played pro overseas, and his brother was a rookie player in the NBA.
Wow.
So lots and lots of basketball in my blood here.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, where's the demand now? What kind of talks are companies asking you to do? What are they looking for these days?
You know what I started a couple of years ago that I'm doing, I'm flying to Houston on Sunday, is people are looking at how to build culture. So like one of the things I'm doing now is building championship culture. I will say, because I do a few outside, but I have three main presentations. So my presentation I started was called Dreams Really Do Come True. It's funny because I am getting more clients recently that want to hear that because they need inspiration. So they're going through a tough time. But the one that started really getting me into leaders or into businesses was when I started a leadership keynote, and I talk about my 7 keys to leadership, and that got it. But in recent times, I'm doing more with the team culture now, how to build a championship team culture. So those are some of the things I'm saying. I mean, as far as the speaking world, something that's obviously got really big is AI. Now, it's not something I'm going to become an expert in, so it's not something I'm going to speak on. I use it and our team uses it some, but at the same time, I still think there are going to be some, the 3 things I talk about, is inspiration. People still need to be inspired. People need to know how to become a better leader, and people need to know how to build a great culture. So those are things I think they're going to stay out there forever. But there's certainly always things that are going to come up, and like I talk to college students on how to be a more powerful presenter. So those are some of the things I try to give back with those types of things. So.
Right, that makes sense. I mean, I work in the world of employment and recruiting, so
Okay.
I think one of the challenges is certainly, we have people who are out of the office, then people who are in the office.
Right.
And we want, kind of a mixture.
Yep.
And it's a challenge for companies to build, the culture of employees, and especially through that transition of, where are we going to sit and what are we going to do? So I'm sure that adds a piece to it in what you have to talk about.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It's going to be really interesting because I know they're starting to do studies, and I read a lot and try to stay up on top of the research. And it's going to be really interesting when the studies 5 years from now come out on what companies are successful where their people aren't coming to work very often, that they're working from home. I think that you're going to see a trend, and this is my prediction, and I could be wrong, where more companies are expected to be in person.
Yeah, I see a lot more companies requiring people to be back in the office.
Yeah, because
not 5 days so much,
right.
But a lot of them are, 3, and I often advise people, even though you may see a position that's listed as remote, often a company, if they can hire someone local, that's what they'll do.
Yeah.
Because there's always that idea that, no, maybe we're not in the office now, but we might be in 6 months.
Right.
So, so that makes sense to me that they would be asking that.
Right.
Anybody else with their hand up? We're just about at 1.
Bless you.
Bless you, Georgia.
It came from nowhere.
Coach, thank you so much. This was a great office hours. I love that.
Thank you. Everybody
got to ask their questions. I love hearing your answers. I wish Dr. Dre was on this call. She's one of our members. I don't know if you've gotten to meet her or not, but
I haven't. So.
I think that you two would hit it off.
Yeah.
So I just want to, can't thank you enough, really, for your time and your energy and for being a member of the Outlier Project. And you're always so good about sharing things and staying in touch, and you're accessible, which is a gift. And so we really, really appreciate you.
Jim, how do we get in touch with you? What's the best way? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
So I'll give you my personal email and cell phone. My website, if we have videos and stuff. My website is coachjimjohnson.com. That way I wouldn't forget it. My Gmail is coachjimjohnson@gmail.com is my personal. It's not the email that's on our website. That goes to my manager. And then my personal cell phone, feel free to text me if I can help you. It's 585-764-0220.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Coach.
Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. It's great to see everybody, and keep me posted if I can help you with anything.
Certainly will.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Jim.
See you, Joe. Take care. Georgia.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you so much, Coach. That was great.
Thanks. Appreciate it. So
We'll talk to you soon.
sounds great. Thanks.
Bye.
Keep making a difference, my friend. Bye.